There have always been those who believe that UFOs, unidentified flying objects, are from outer space. But the truth may be closer to home.
I'm a great cynic about UFOs, and I'm quite sure that was mainly our airplanes that were flying around.
For over 60 years, in top-secret research bases around the world, flying saucers have been designed, built, and flown.
Secreted away from the rest of the main company is a place where they're building flying saucers.
Some even claim to have seen them.
There was no mistaking what they were. They were flying saucers.
This is the secret history of attempts to harness the technology of the flying saucer to produce the ultimate military plane. These are the real UFOs. The story of the real UFOs begins in Nazi Germany. As victory in the Second World War was slipping from their grasp, German scientists were trying to perfect weapons that might turn the war in Hitler's favor. One of these was Victor Schauberger, an inventor who had produced models for a flying saucer. It had met the promise of a flying machine that could maneuver like a helicopter, but travel at supersonic speed undetected by the enemy. Schauberger's craft utilized a tornado-like vortex, which produced magnetic effects causing levitation.
Victor was recognized by the German government, actually met with Hitler, and later was inducted into the SS and put to work further developing this flying saucer concept.
He worked alongside a group of brilliant German engineers, including Rudolf Schriever, Andreas Epp, and Dr. Richard Miete. All produced highly advanced designs.
The Germans actually had 3 separate developmental areas for flying saucers, one at Peenemünde, one at Breslau, and the other at Prague. At all these 3 facilities, flying saucers flew.
The Germans had, in fact, gone far enough into development and testing that aircraft were in the air. And one company, Messerschmitt, and had flown a complete saucer-shaped aircraft.
These pictures of the early prototypes resemble photographs of UFOs that would emerge in the coming decades. But this was not the world of science fiction. These were highly advanced UFOs. For the German military, this lethal weaponry was being developed to win the war. The battle for air supremacy in World War II dominated the military struggle in Europe. By 1944, the tide was about to turn against Germany and Hitler's Third Reich. And then on June 13th, a week after the Allied D-Day landings, Hitler unleashed his deadly secret weapons. Over a period of 2 months, thousands of V-1 jet-powered flying bombs attacked London. Some were shot down from the ground, others in the air. This deadly development in warfare technology was to start a whole new era of military aviation history. The use of flying saucer technology to produce even more efficient killing machines was to be the culmination of this research.
During the Nazi period, we had a flowering of new thought, of scientific thought, of technological development. These scientists were freed up to do a lot of work. They developed science in every field that is relevant in our lives today, and as a matter of fact, we're still living off that carcass.
But there was nothing new about the basic principles of rocket science. Since the 1920s and 30s, there had been an explosion of innocent enthusiasts experimenting with rocket propulsion across Europe and America. But what the Nazis were doing was anything but innocent. At their deadly weapons research facilities, scientists were working on a new generation of weapons. And alongside the rockets and missiles, real UFOs were a crucial part of that program.
One of the incredible things that happened during the Second World War was the amount of technology that German scientists were turning out that was devoted to a war effort. And that included rocketry, it included the jet engines, but it also included some remarkable work in terms of flying saucer craft.
But time was running out for Hitler and his scientists. On all fronts, the Allies were breaking through. The Germans were in retreat. The flying saucer technology, just like all of Hitler's other ultimate weapons, would come too late.
Even right to the very end of the war, it seems they really believed that these super weapons, these super delivery systems, were going to be able to at least stall the Allies and they were going to be able to arrive at some sort of political settlement of the war.
Hitler's dream of winning the war with his super weapons never came. By May 1945, the final battle for Berlin had started. The war in Europe was virtually over. But this was only the beginning of the story of the real UFOs. Within 3 months, the Second World War came to a dramatic and horrifying end. At 8:15 in the morning of August 6, 1945, the Enola Gay, a B-29 American bomber, dropped the first atomic bomb on Hiroshima. With the war finally over, the former Allies had now become rivals. The Soviet Union and the West would soon be locked in a battle for the latest military technology.
Well, at the close of the Second World War, all the former Allied powers were engaged in a race to capture German technology.
Americans captured a complex for the manufacturing of V-2s and the plans for many other missiles. But the Russians captured the latest models of jet aircraft from the Germans and a good amount of rocket scientists.
But the key question was who was going to capture the real UFO scientists. The secrets of German rocketry and missiles was not the only technology to fall into Russian and American hands. The Cold War was about to begin, and alongside the very public nuclear arms race, with its displays of missile hardware, there was also another secret arms race going on, which the public knew nothing about. This time, to find the ultimate flying machine, a flying saucer from the world of science fiction. During the Second World War, there was a major technological revolution in jet propulsion, atomic physics, and real UFOs, flying saucer technology. The Germans had led the world in the development of real UFOs, and now their ideas and scientists had fallen into the hands of the two superpowers, Russia and America. German UFO flying saucer engineers Victor Schauberger, Rudolf Schriever, and a Dr. Mita were secretly working for the Americans. While Andreas Epp was reported to be working on flying saucer projects for the Russians.
Both Americans and Russians exploited really a lot the scientists that they captured at the end of the war. And they used this technology and these guys to develop their science during the Cold War.
By the end of the Second World War, the former Allies had become rivals, and the Cold War arms race had begun. The focus of the American efforts went on developing rocket and missile weapon systems. It seemed that the captured German flying saucer technology had been put on hold. Then in 1947, there was a report of a UFO flying over America seen by an American pilot, Kenneth Arnold.
He was flying near Mount Rainier in the state of Washington and witnessed 9 flying discs, some distance from him.
When Arnold landed, he told his story to the local press.
I was approximately 25 to 28 miles from Mount Rainier, and I noticed to the left of me a chain which looked to me like the tail of a Chinese kite going at a terrific speed across the face of Mount Rainier. They looked something like a pie plate that was cut in half with a sort of a convex triangle in the rear.
Well, Kenneth Arnold started a firestorm. He was able to calculate from known landmarks how fast they were flying, and found they were flying at 12 or 1,300 miles an hour. And from his description, once he landed and gave this story to the press, he described these objects as if they were saucers skipping on water. And today, that's how we have the word flying saucer.
From out of nowhere, the flying saucer mystery is with us. What is the flying saucer? What do people see and sometimes photograph? What's behind the daily reports of aerial phenomena in the nation's press?
U.S. television and radio began reporting eyewitness accounts of members of the public who claimed they had seen UFOs in the skies over America.
I glanced up and there were 3 flying saucers in a V, approximately a half a mile away from me at an altitude of 350 feet.
Is this what Weisberger saw?
America was gripped with UFO sightings and flying saucer fever. The military was eager to deny it was anything to do with them, and went on television to reassure the American public.
We can say that the recent sightings are in no way connected with any secret development by any agency of the United States.
In my position in the Research and Development Organization of the Bureau of Aeronautics and of the Navy Department, I am thoroughly familiar with both our aircraft and our guided missiles programs and can state without reservation that the Navy has no saucer-shaped aircraft or missile in any of these programs.
Then in July 1947, in the midst of the UFO fever, came a startling report by another serving American officer. He announced to the press the discovery of remains from a flying saucer found in Roswell, New Mexico. Within hours, the story of the Roswell incident exploded around the world. The American military panicked. Again, they issued an official statement designed to reassure an anxious public, denying the remains were from a flying saucer. They maintained that it was simply a weather balloon. Behind all these American denials was a more ominous possibility for the military. Assuming the UFOs were not from outer space, flown by aliens, perhaps all these sightings were evidence of an enemy closer to home.
The American military were inundated by all kinds of UFO reports, and that drove them to the idea that perhaps some of those UFO missions were the Soviets in the air.
The Americans captured the very exotic blueprints of very advanced designs for aircrafts, and among them there was the Horten 229 by the Horten brothers. And this aircraft was very similar in shape to the first description of a flying saucer sighted over America in 1947. And the Americans were scared that the Russians could have produced actually a flying version of the Horten 229.
So in the immediate post-war years, reports of UFO sightings were part of the growing tensions between East and West as the Cold War grew in intensity. In the early 1950s, the Korean War had almost brought the world to a nuclear disaster. In America, the paranoia and the sense of fear of communist invasion was reflected in attitudes to flying saucers in popular culture.
Flying saucers have invaded our planet. Washington, London, Paris, Moscow are key targets. The whole world is under attack.
The 50s were the golden age of the flying saucer. People were scared by the Cold War. They were scared by the atomic experiments. They were at the same time very keen to the space exploration and to the advancement of technology, so the climate was the right one to expect extraterrestrial visitations from outer space.
Gee whiz!
Invaders
from Mars. He saw them land from outer space. He saw them capture innocent people only to destroy.
But for the American military, the continued rumors and speculation was ideal camouflage for the real UFOs. All over the deserts of America were sites like Area 51, White Sands, and Los Alamos, where alongside missile tests and space programs, there were hundreds of other mysterious top-secret projects. These included high-altitude parachute tests, satellite testing, and the development of future space vehicles. One of these secret programs was called Project Mogul. Project Mogul was a top-secret program to listen in on the Russians using equipment on high-altitude balloons. The American military were desperate to discover secrets of the Soviet program to develop a rival atom bomb. They needed to know when the Soviets were testing one of their weapons. It was not until 20 years later that the US government was forced to confess that the Roswell incident, back in 1947, was in fact secret military testing by the Americans. They published a report which concluded that what was recovered was not the remains of an extraterrestrial spacecraft, but debris from a then classified Army Air Force research project, codenamed Mogul. But there was good reason for the Americans to be frightened of the Russians. The experience of the Korean War and the startling appearance of the MiG fighter had proved how advanced Russian military technology had become. America needed to catch up, and catch up fast. Could a supersonic flying saucer be the answer? In the 1950s, the race was on to build the ultimate weapon, a radar-invisible supersonic aircraft. What was needed was from the realms of science fiction.
The U.S. Air Force, in fact, wanted a new fighter interceptor, something that no Soviet aircraft would look like, a completely new airplane, one that could fly faster and higher than anything else in the air at the time.
In 1953, the CIA discovered that Avro, the Canadian aeronautics company, was working secretly on a revolutionary aircraft, a flying saucer. This was the brainchild of a visionary British aeronautical engineer.
The genius behind the Flying Saucer project was John Frost. He came from England as a designer on another project, but he soon became intrigued with the idea of taking flying saucers into the air.
John Frost had been responsible for one of aviation's most innovative developments, the swept-wing tailless fighter.
The inspiration behind John Frost's first ideas, in fact, came from his collecting a scrapbook of all the UFO reports that were being heralded all over the world. And through looking at every one of the reports, he began to start sifting them down to at least two possible sources. And one was man-made, and he traced it back to Germany.
Frost was intrigued by reports of the Nazi flying saucers.
And in fact, we now have evidence to show that he is a participant in interviewing German scientists, and especially one, Mitha, who would work directly with German flying saucers.
Dr. Mitha claimed that he had worked for over 10 years on the Nazi saucer program, and his team had actually built a flying prototype. Mitha showed Frost photographs, plans, and blueprints. Frost was convinced that he could turn Mitha's plans into reality.
John Frost had the promise of something that no one else could deliver at that point, a supersonic, more than twice as fast as the speed of sound aircraft that could fly higher and faster than anything else out there and never needed a runway or any airfield to operate from.
In 1952, the Canadian Avro Aircraft Factory concealed one of America's most highly classified and top-secret projects.
John Frost set up a secret group called the Special Projects Group. It was based on men just like himself, engineers and technicians and scientists that would work on his own ideas and ideas that would in fact lead to the flying saucer projects.
One of the aeronautical engineers who worked with John Frost on this revolutionary concept was Doug Garland.
Well, John Frost was frightfully English. You know, he was a typical English gentleman from the public school system, but with tremendous experience in the aviation industry. I'd say his enthusiasm was infectious. No problem was too big. There's a solution to every problem. In fact, we don't have problems, we have challenges. There were plenty of challenges.
John Frost's very first project is Project Y, a spade-shaped aircraft that's based around his circular pancaked engine. It'll be able to take off from the ground vertically or in a rolling takeoff and fly as a supersonic interceptor.
Project Y was designed as a tailless jet engine aircraft. It was in effect using flying saucer technology. A spade-shaped mock-up was built by Frost's elite team in a heavily guarded workshop in the Avro factory. In 1953, a model with a delta tail jet flap for vertical takeoff control was secretly tested. The failings of the design soon became apparent.
One of the main problems with any tail-sitting aircraft would be that the amount of pilot skills that would be required to fly vertically from the ground in that position, and then, in fact, to return would be incredible.
John Frost now concentrated all the efforts of the Special Projects team on the development of a circular design, essentially a flying saucer.
The Circle is the most efficient ground effect machine. You get more lift for a given thrust around the periphery. So it makes sense when you're hovering in ground effect.
John Frost's next design was codenamed Y2.
And Project Y2 is a completely circular aircraft, now using a rotor system in the center of it and multiple engines on the outside edge, powering that rotor, giving it vertical takeoff and eventual direction so it could fly into altitudes that no one else could guess. It was a knife-edge supersonic fighter that he was selling. And at this point, the American Air Force bought in big time with a $10 million grant towards his research.
By 1956, the Cold War space race and arms race was at its height. The American military was desperate to invest in new weapons technologies. With clandestine American funding, the development of the supersonic flying saucer began.
In the Schaefer building was a full-size, 50-foot diameter, 6-engine powered aircraft. Now, testing, though, proved that it was a dangerous beast, one that nearly killed the entire Frost team.
The test was nearly catastrophic. The engines of the saucer tethered in the hangar spun out of control and almost blew the roof of the research lab off.
John Frost decides that there's no way that he can continue this work with a complete flying saucer. Supersonic project is abandoned for the time being for him to build a smaller test vehicle that becomes the Avro car.
Well, the design specification for the Avro car was to fly at forward speed at 300 miles an hour, some modest kind of speed, but it had a high thrust-to-weight ratio greater than 1, and to fly at 30,000 feet altitude, and to land and take off vertically.
In 1957, Frost's prototype model finally rewarded the earlier American military investment in his project.
The Avro car was a scaled-down test vehicle that could do two jobs. One, it could provide a test vehicle for the supersonic craft that was still sitting in the Schaefer building, but secondly, it could be the flying jeep that the U.S. Army required. With weaponry, it could actually go on the battlefield as a battlefield weapon.
In 1959, the two vertical takeoff prototypes rolled out of the factory. The long-term aim was to produce a flying saucer that could reach over 1,500 miles per hour.
It did fly along the runways, de-icing the runways quite nicely, blowing ice and snow around. And it got into trouble over freshly mown part of the airfield when all the grass blew up and came back down in the intakes. And then we started thinking about how to prevent what's called foreign object ingestion into the intakes.
The flying saucer flew several test flights, but its shape meant that it was incredibly difficult to steer.
It was a maze of challenges, and the biggest challenge that the concept faced was the pitch instability, the aerodynamic center being so far forward of the center of gravity. It's not a good recipe for a happy flight.
So the vertical takeoff and hover principle was working. Modifications were made, but lack of power and inadequate control mechanisms were difficulties that had to be overcome if the Avro car was ever to fly as intended.
Apart from the development of powerful pitch control, the only way that we knew to make a circular device stable was to have it spin, like a frisbee today. And the spinning action will impart stability. Some of John Frost's early designs did in fact have large spinning components, and the gyroscopic power of those devices was thought to impart some stability in designs which were thought to go as fast as 3 times the speed of sound.
Frost was convinced he could control the instability problem. But the Americans insisted on adding a swept tail unit. Frost considered this was a betrayal of his original concept. So in December 1961, the $10 million Avro flying saucer program was officially scrapped. But some of the engineers who worked on the project did not totally abandon Frost's dream.
There really is no aerodynamic future for a circular wing subsonically. Supersonically, with a few modifications and tweaking to its shape to make it a little more like a delta wing, one might see a possible outcome.
John Frost always believed his original concept was achievable.
Despite the unfavorable results of the Avro car testing, the work that John Frost had put into the supersonic project showed that in fact it could have flown. And unfortunately, with the money eventually simply stopping, the company shut down the entire project. All the technology went back to the United States, who was the real owners now at that point.
The highly classified flying saucer technology went to America. But were these apparent public failures covering up a more covert flying saucer project that later, indeed, would work? This is Jack Pickett. 40 years ago, he was a publisher of U.S. military magazines. He even had positive security clearance. On a visit to MacDill Air Force Base in Florida, he was convinced he saw real American Air Force flying saucers.
There was no mistaking what they were. They were flying saucers. There was 4 of them parked in a row down at that restricted area of the base, and they ranged in size from 20 feet across to about 45 feet to, say, 70 feet, and then the biggest one was 119 feet across. Perfect circles.
Jack Pickett had been invited to the Air Force Base to write an article on the recently decommissioned aircraft. Pickett was even shown some remarkable photographs of the aircraft in the hangar.
He showed me photographs of many of these aircraft in flight, in formation. He showed me photographs of them with jet escorts, regular type escorts, flying with them.
Military researcher Michael Schratt has been investigating the Pickett story for the last 10 years.
This one was 119 feet across.
Schratt has worked closely with Pickett to produce a series of photo reconstructions of the experimental aircraft which Pickett saw. What Pickett was shown seemed incredible, but he was assured that indeed these were real experimental flying saucers, and this was the evidence that they had actually flown.
I said, well, how fast did they fly and how high? He says, well, we achieved space flight with them. And I asked him pointedly, any aircraft that flew that high and that fast, why are you discontinuing them? Why are you scrapping them? He says, well, we've designed better versions with less maneuverability problems.
Pickett wrote his article and was ready to publish, But at the last moment, the Air Force withdrew permission and took back all Pickett's photographs. He stands by his story and remains convinced of what he saw.
Well, I saw the photographs of them in flight. I walked up and touched the actual aircraft themselves. I really examined them, and it was, no question about it, it was a remarkable aircraft, and it looked just exactly like what flying saucers are supposed to look like. In between.
Michael Schratt is convinced by all the evidence that indeed Jack Pickett's story is true.
I believe that these were the original, true, authentic articles because I've spoken to Jack for over 4 years now. He's remained consistent throughout, never changed his story. The aircraft that Jack kicked the tires on were capable of 15,500 miles per hour, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's still classified to this day.
Pickett's claims came against a background of heightened Cold War tensions. At the beginning of the 1960s, American U-2 pilot Francis Gary Powers was shot down on a spy mission over the Soviet Union. In Europe, the Soviets had built the Berlin Wall, dividing east from west. And with the Cuban Missile Crisis, the world had come closer than ever before to nuclear catastrophe.
This could be the beginning of the end for the...
As in the 1950s, popular culture reflected the fear and paranoia of the times. And again, it latched on to the threat from outer space.
The nations of the world mobilize their armed might, rushing to defend the Earth against the unknown weapons of the super race from the Red Planet.
There was suddenly a wave of UFO sightings.
We jumped out of the car and stood by the side of the road just as this thing passed over our heads, barely above the treetops.
It was hovering over the house and it was moving side to side directly over this house.
And as far as what it was, I wouldn't have the slightest idea.
I've been researching UFOs for the last 25 years, and I do believe that most, but all of us, of the witnesses are reliable people having seen something strange in the sky. Most of the times they have seen man-made phenomena or natural phenomena, like weather balloons, planets, satellite re-entries, stuff like that. But there is actually a small but significant percentage of sightings that cannot find any explanation at this time.
But there was one explanation for these mysterious UFO sightings, and it didn't involve extraterrestrial creatures.
I'm a great cynic about UFOs, and I would say in a single sentence that practically every UFO, other than those that are being taken by using saucepan lids, every UFO other than those has probably been under contract to the U.S. Air Force.
In the 1960s, Alan Brown was working at the Lockheed Secret Experimental Skunk Works in the Nevada desert. It was a time when both Russia and America were afraid of each other's nuclear strike capabilities. The Russians relied heavily on satellite technology to spy on the United States. The Americans invested mainly on manned surveillance aircraft. Lockheed had built the top-secret U-2 high-altitude spy aircraft, designed for covert surveillance over Soviet territory. But it was vulnerable to enemy radar.
When the first U-2 was shot down over Russia by surface-to-air missiles, it was recognized even before that time that the U-2's life probably wasn't going to be very long because it was not designed from a stealth point of view, and it was seen that they would have to do something pretty drastic to make improvements.
Flying saucer technology might produce the ultimate aircraft, one invisible to radar. A competition was started to replace the U-2.
Lockheed, in fact, won the contract, and I was involved with that in an airplane called Have Blue. And the program did change very quickly from a confidential clearance to a top secret clearance when it was realized just the enormity of what could be done with an airplane which was essentially invisible to radar.
Over the next 10 years, shrouded in secrecy, a new generation of stealth fighters was rigorously tested in Area 51, the U.S. government flight test base in Nevada.
There's no question that you have to have large-scale testing over a large area, which means that there's going to be people on the periphery who are seeing these funny-looking objects flying around, which immediately get reported in the popular press as coming from Mars, Saturn, or you name it.
So Jack Pickett's story might be true. Throughout this period, it was the U.S. Air Force that was developing aircraft capable of evading enemy radar. Just what the pioneers of flying saucer technology always promised. What's more, 12 years later, there was another witness who seemed to confirm Jack Pickett's account. Warren Botts, an ex-8th Air Force pilot, saw an identical flying saucer aircraft hidden in a restricted hangar while visiting Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for a pilot's reunion.
To my surprise, I saw this huge disc airplane and was almost wall-to-wall in circumference, and it was jet-powered from what I saw. I started to walk over to look at it, not thinking anything about it, and an armed guard stopped me and told me I'm not allowed to be in there. So I left, but I did see a large circular airplane in there.
Michael Schratt now had personal testimony from a second witness of the highly classified flying saucer.
He briefly described the exact same aircraft that Jack Pickett had seen it, and described other features that Jack didn't describe. And so when I put these two men together, then I knew I was dealing with a real subject.
Despite much skepticism, Warren Botts, like Pickett, remains convinced.
People that I spoke to since that time said it never existed, which I think they're wrong, because I know what I saw. I believe that we do have flying saucers. They did exist, and they do exist now.
What both men had seen was remarkably similar to the final John Frost Avrocard design, which the American military had reported as abandoned. Many believe that far from being abandoned, research into flying saucer technology had continued.
I think it's definitely being experimented today, because not only can get to your enemy completely unannounced, but you have radar invisibility, you've got the acoustic invisibility, no runways necessary, you have the potential to fly outside our atmosphere into space, and that is the holy grail that the U.S. Air Force always had wanted from the beginning.
There still remains much classified material on the development of flying saucer technology. But by the end of the century, American scientists and engineers had fulfilled many of the hopes and dreams of flying saucers, a fighting machine that could travel at supersonic speed, undetected by radar, based not on a circular disk, but a pyramid. For a period of 15 years, this revolutionary aircraft was classified as a black project, one of America's best-kept secrets. This was the ultimate real UFO, a supersonic strike aircraft, which flew like a jet, but with stealth unseen by radar. In 1988, the Americans decided to reveal it to the world.
There's an interesting aspect to the reason why the F-117 was exposed to the public at the end of 1988. The airplanes had been restrained to only flying at night. So the pilots are stuck into this airplane on a totally dark airfield in the middle of Nevada. And we, in fact, did finish up losing a couple of pilots by just purely being disoriented in night flying. At that point, the Air Force decided it had better start flying during the day, and if it was going to do that, it was going to give some indication of what was flying, so we weren't going to get a whole raft of more UFO reports.
In order to evade radar and surface-to-air missiles, The Lockheed stealth fighter, the F-117, adopted some of the concepts of the flying saucer. Principally, the idea of the shape of the aircraft determined its visibility to enemy radar.
We got a radar cross-section that was substantially better than anybody ever expected. And the main reason was that we took a different approach to analyzing stealth than had been done in the past, and found out that basically a very shallow pyramidal shape with highly swept back edges gave a much lower cross-section than anything had been done before.
Within 1 year of the stealth fighter being declassified, the Soviet Empire began to disintegrate. On November the 9th, 1989, with the collapse of the Berlin Wall, the borders between East and West Germany were open. The Cold War effectively had come to an end. But it wasn't long before the stealth fighter saw its first combat, spearheading the assault against a new enemy in the Iraq War. Its invisibility to radar, combined with precision bombing, shocked the world.
We could go in there, drop the bombs exactly at the altitude we wanted to with enormous precision, and take out exactly the targets we needed without being seen. And the whole of the Gulf War in the 1991 period was conducted where we had thousands of sorties and we didn't even get a scratch on one of our airplanes.
The unique abilities of the stealth fighter were demonstrated in the Gulf War, but there remained one basic failing. It had to be designed around the needs of a pilot.
Future fighting machines are going to be pilotless. I think the cost, politically and morally, of losing highly trained crew these days seems to point in the direction of UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles.
There is nothing new about the concept of pilotless aircraft. From the early days of flight, many have experimented with the idea. Some with a degree of success. The development of unmanned spaceflight has opened up future aviation possibilities.
The biggest issue in the future is certainly unmanned aircraft. And we can also go down to miniaturized airplanes, which are the order of 6 inches in diameter, and fly those into buildings. And in fact, the whole scope of what can be done in the future is just enormous. It's mind-boggling.
The future is, perhaps, in this new generation of flying machines. The latest Sikorsky Aerobot is capable of high-speed hovering, vertical takeoff, and landing. But these vehicles seem a long way from the dreams of Hitler's flying saucer engineers. Machines on the edge of science fiction, capable of phenomenal supersonic speed. Perhaps the science of flying saucers was never a reality.
As long as you stay close to the ground, you've got yourself an efficient lifting device. It does not make an efficient wing in free air at all. It's just not an efficient shape. And only flying saucers from outer space have been able to do anything with it. And I think they're probably just a figment of the imagination.
Others insist not only that the dream of flying saucer technology is possible, but that concealed from us all, it has already been achieved.
I think that this is the biggest secret that the U.S. Air Force has, and I believe it's high time that the facts about the U.S. Air Force jet-powered flying wing disc program be declassified. There's absolutely no threat to the national security, and it's time that this bird come into the light.
Some of the latest inventions are now in the public domain, but a great many remain secret, fueling more speculation over UFO sightings across our skies. The dream of the ultimate flying machine is still unfulfilled.
The Bermuda Triangle, one of the deadliest places on Earth. A hot zone where ships and airplanes vanish without a trace. But halfway around the globe, at its polar opposite, there lies another triangle. This one more mysterious and more deadly. It is known as the Dragon's Triangle.
The Dragon's Triangle is an area where ships disappear, planes disappear, and other kind of phenomena occur.
There's really no way to predict what sorts of things you're going to see out here. And we do see some pretty odd stuff.
We'll explore the mysteries, the evidence, and the science behind one of the most treacherous, dangerous, and puzzling triangle regions on the planet.
If your ship was right on top of that gas bubble, you would sink because you wouldn't have enough buoyancy to keep your ship floating.
As events involving ships, planes, and submarines continue to terrify passengers and mystify experts, many wonder, what is down there? And what could possibly be next in the Pacific's Bermuda Triangle? "25 degrees north, 142 degrees east. These are the coordinates of the center of one of the most mysterious triangle regions on Earth. For centuries, this area has hosted some of the most bizarre disappearances of ships, airplanes, and loss of life anywhere on the planet. But this is not the Bermuda Triangle. It is a 500,000 square mile area located in the deep waters of the Pacific Ocean. It is known as the Dragon's Triangle.
The Devil's Sea, or the Dragon's Triangle, is an area off the southern coast of Japan where supposedly many unexplained shipwrecks have taken place, where planes have disappeared, very similar to the Bermuda Triangle in, of course, a very different part of the world.
The Dragon's Triangle is a large area of water off the east coast of Japan, bounded by Japan and Guam, in the Philippine Sea, in which navigators and ships have reported for thousands of years loss of ships, loss of compass readings, and strange objects flying out of the water.
Curiously, its counterpoint in the Atlantic, the infamous Bermuda Triangle, lies directly across the globe, along the 35-degree latitude line. Both areas are believed to contain some of the world's deepest waters, much of which remains unexplored to this day.
Both the Bermuda Triangle and the Dragon's Sea lie along the same latitude, and both have the same anomaly where geographic north and magnetic north seem to come together, so compass readings are off by 20 degrees. And that's why researchers believe there are so many lost planes and ships in these areas.
It is quite interesting to see that they are both at exactly the same location.
The boundaries of the Dragon's Triangle are generally believed to stretch from central Japan to Guam to the Mariana Islands. While lesser known to the west than the Bermuda Triangle, unexplained disappearances and strange phenomena occur in this area with a far greater and more alarming frequency. Since World War II, it is believed that over 1,500 vessels and hundreds of military, commercial, and civilian aircraft have disappeared.
The Dragon's Triangle has had many more ships disappear than the Bermuda Triangle. And the ships that have disappeared in the Dragon's Triangle have been large ones, military ships, cargo ships.
What's so odd about the Dragon's Triangle compared to the Bermuda Triangle is that the Bermuda Triangle has so much more press. Why would that be?
The area first gained modern notoriety in 1989 with the publication of Charles Berlitz's The Dragon's Triangle. Berlitz, coincidentally, was the author of the book The Bermuda Triangle, which reopened that mysterious case in 1974. For years, Berlitz studied the reports of ship and aircraft disappearances in this area, along with reports of UFO sightings and other anomalies. According to his research, compasses often fail or give wildly inaccurate readings in the triangle. boats and airplanes report being moved far off course in a matter of seconds. Sightings of ghost ships have been reported for over 100 years. And finally, hundreds of ships, airplanes, and even submarines have, without warning, fallen to the bottom of this extremely deep region. One of Berlitz's most terrifying and puzzling unsolved cases involves what he considers unseen and unknown forces that pulled legendary pilot Amelia Earhart down to her death in the heart of the Triangle in 1937.
She goes more than 2/3 of the way around the world, over 22,000 miles. I look eastward over the Pacific, she writes. I shall be glad when we have the hazards of its navigation behind us. This fleeting radio contact is the last verified report of Amelia Earhart.
Here's a story where Amelia Earhart was flying off Guam. Some say she was on a spy mission for the United States, and she lost her compass bearings.
July 2nd, 1937, 12:30 p.m. Pioneering aviator Amelia Earhart and navigator Fred Noonan left Lae, New Guinea on the last leg of a round-the-world flight. Their flight plan would have taken them 2,500 miles to Howland Island for a refueling stop and over the Dragon's Triangle. The two were never seen again.
Her compass and her instruments went down. Her plane was lost. She was never heard from again.
To this day, Earhart's disappearance remains one of aviation's greatest unsolved cases.
The Dragon's Triangle is also host to stories of ghost ships appearing out of the fog.
Berlitz associates the Dragon's Triangle with one of the sea's greatest mysteries as well, ghost ships. Large ships floating at sea, completely devoid of people, cargo, and equipment. He claims the region has been fraught with unmanned floating hulks for centuries.
In Japanese tradition, these ghost ships are typically malevolent. They want to destroy the living people that they run into.
Ghost ships exceeding 100,000 tons have been seen floating aimlessly in the Dragon's Triangle. If true, how does an entire crew vanish without a trace? Berlitz points out a pair of horrifying ghost ship cases in his book. June 11th, 1881, 4 a.m. According to reports, the HMS Bashante encountered the legendary glowing Flying Dutchman ghost ship late at night in the deepest area of the Dragon's Triangle. A naval ensign aboard the ship, a prince who would later become England's King George V, made the following entry in the ship's log.
The Flying Dutchman crossed our bows. She emitted a strange phosphorescent light, as of a phantom ship all aglow. She came up on the port bow, where also the officer of the watch from the bridge saw her. But on arriving, there was no vestige or any sign whatever of any material ship to be seen, either near or right away to the horizon. The night became clear and the sea calm.
January 1989. Berlitz says that a Japanese whaling ship skippered by Captain Moro Sagakami came within 50 feet of a small fishing boat that was bobbing erratically in their course one dark, clear night. The captain and several crew members arrived to find a ship completely barren of all crew and cargo, save for the corpse of the captain, still gripping the helm.
As far as ghost ships are concerned, what if the crews themselves were abductees? So the reason the vessel is adrift, the reason there's no crew, no remains, is that the crews are simply gone, taken by a USO.
According to Berlitz's research, dozens of vessels have gone even further off the radar. They have disappeared from the Triangle entirely. On April 19, 1949, the Kuroshio Maru No. 1 disappears with a reported crew of 23. On June 8, 1952, 29 crew members of the Chifuku Maru No. 5 vanish. June 26, 1955, a U.S. Air Force F-3B jet loses radio contact with its base. Its two-man crew disappears. March 12, 1957, 8 crewmen aboard a United States Air Force KB-50 tanker transport are reported missing. June 7, 1963. Remains of the Donan Maru are found floating on the ocean surface off Shio-Nomizaki. But an event forever etched into triangle lore and Japanese history is the mysterious sinking of the Japanese research vessel Kaio Maru No. 5.
Kaio Maru No. 5 was a Coast Guard ship researching about that area.
On September 24, 1952, the Japanese Maritime Safety Agency research vessel Kaio Maru No. 5 is in the Dragon's Triangle.
She went out to the Dragon's Triangle specifically to find out the cause of all the losses of vessels in that area.
Suddenly, without any distress call, she disappears forever, taking with her a crew of 22 and 9 scientists. In their official Kaio Maru No. 5 accident investigation report from March 1953, the Marine Coast Guard states, "We have to investigate when, where, why it disappeared, because there are no witnesses and no survivors for this accident." While many conclude that the ship fell victim to an underwater volcano's eruption, others remain unconvinced.
Very ironic that here you have a ship that's going out looking for other ships and it disappears. That oftentimes happens in these mysterious triangles.
Because of this event's importance to Japanese maritime history, today in Tokyo there is a shrine dedicated to the memory of those lost in this mysterious sinking. Like the Bermuda Triangle in the Atlantic, the Dragon's Triangle in the Pacific just off Japan is believed to play havoc with the so-called time-space continuum of planet Earth. This unexplained phenomenon reportedly causes ships and airplanes to be forced off course by miles and miles, and for clocks to suddenly change time, all in an instant.
Some of the theories for the Dragon's Triangle include that it's an anomaly, that there's some kind of magnetic anomaly, that there's some kind of black hole in the ocean, that there's something from outer space that zooms down and has some kind of interaction with, craft there and they disappear. But as far as we know, things happen there and we don't know why.
In the late 1950s, American television and radio personality Arthur Godfrey, an accomplished pilot in his own right, reportedly experiences a frightening occurrence in the Dragon's Triangle, one that nearly cost him his life.
In the 1950s, the band leader and television personality from America, Arthur Godfrey, was piloting a twin-engine craft over the Dragon's Triangle. He saw a USO. The instruments on his plane went dead. He was low on fuel. He had to navigate by the sun because his compass was out. When his instruments came back on and he was able to get over land again, he found out the same exact thing that he had experienced missing time during the period.
With only enough fuel for 3 hours, Godfrey piloted his craft on dead reckoning. After 1 hour, his instrumentation returned, and he was able to return to course. However, Godfrey would later report that he inexplicably lost a half hour. His clocks literally rolled backwards. Fortunately for Godfrey and his crew, they safely arrived in Tokyo, avoiding the terrible fate of Amelia Earhart and countless others in the Dragon's Triangle. Other similar time-space anomalies over the Triangle have been reported by military pilots in the 1950s and 60s, including Air Force pilot Frank Hopkins, an advisor to the 106th Air Transport Group. In the summer of 1968, he wrote to Argosy magazine with a story of a time-space continuum shift while flying a C-97 Stratofreighter over the Dragon's Triangle. In the spring of 1966, I was a basic navigator aboard an Air Guard C-97 flying from Kwajalein Island to Guam. We looked forward to a pleasant night flight of about 6 to 6.5 hours. Hopkins says that, as per protocol, he plots his position hourly using star navigation. But during the 3rd hour of the flight, something inexplicable occurs. I shot a second celestial fix. Weather was excellent. Only problem was, and I almost fell out of the airplane when I put this on the chart, this last fix was almost 340 nautical miles down intended course. I rechecked and rechecked. a plugging old C-97 covered 340 nautical miles in 1 hour of time for no apparent reason. Later, upon landing on Guam, Hopkins reports to his duty officer that his airplane jumped many hundreds of miles ahead of course, but no report is filed. Hopkins says that he remains convinced, however, that this area is indeed home to peculiar forces that pose great danger to airplanes and ships. Due to the confluence of these events, experts continue to feel other forces might possibly be at work deep below the triangle.
Of all the anomalies in the Dragon's Triangle, none are more mysterious than the vast number of sightings of UFOs.
According to Charles Berlitz's Dragon's Triangle, he believes the most notorious cause of deadly events in the area are the specter of UFOs and their underwater counterparts, USOs, unidentified submerged objects. Quote, a number of ships that have disappeared in the Dragon's Triangle have been sunk by USOs. These events were often attributed in ancient times to angry demons or dragons.
The Japanese were very influenced by the Chinese, and the Chinese were great believers in dragons, and that these dragons were somehow at sea and they could rise up. And the dragon was both a propitious and a threatening symbol.
UFO experts in Japan and researchers like Berlitz all believe the apparitions in the triangle, thought to be monsters and dragons by early witnesses, were in fact UFOs. These reports continue to this day.
As we studied about this area, we found many interesting scientific reasons for these incidents, which had been called mysterious.
There was a report in the Japan Sea by a fishing boat. The fishermen reported seeing a huge UFO flying back and forth and lights in the ocean.
Japanese ufologist Junichiro Kato, head of OurJ, the Organization of UFO Research Japan, has been studying UFO phenomenon for almost 20 years. He has seen UFOs on numerous occasions over the waters near Japan and has photographed many of his sightings.
I have so many photographs. There are maybe over 200 sightings. At one point, I witnessed 1 or 2 a month.
The eastern tip of the Dragon's Triangle is believed by experts to even include portions of the city of Tokyo. On June 14, 1997, Kato snapped a photograph of a fast-moving glowing disk, moving at, he estimates, over 500 miles per hour just above the waters off Tokyo Bay.
I took a picture of 3 UFOs flying in formation over the ocean near Tokyo Disneyland. The 3 UFOs made a triangle shape. This event was seen by 10 witnesses.
The event was phoned into local Tokyo news outlets by several witnesses, but media reports were never filed. Kato was not the only modern Japanese witness to inform the History Channel of sightings of UFO-like objects over the Dragon's Triangle. Nobu Miyoshi, a Tokyo-based magazine editor, witnessed a UFO over the Dragon's Triangle while on this quiet beach about 30 miles south of Tokyo in 1990.
In August of 1990, I saw an airplane going in one direction, and a white light appeared very close to the jet, and I wondered what it was. It moved like it was writing a W in the sky. It moved at 1 kilometer per second. It was quite quick. Before that, I didn't believe in UFOs. But since then, I became a believer.
This unique experience leaves an indelible impression on Nobu.
I wasn't scared. I was very surprised. I'd love to see it again and watch it much closer.
Throughout the 20th century, eyewitness reports of UFO sightings in the Dragon's Triangle began to swell, from verbal reports from fishermen to official reports from military men and women. After World War II, the Soviet Navy had one of the largest active fleets in the Northern Pacific. Over the years, sailors and officers aboard these vessels have been responsible for some of the best UFO reports in the Dragon's Triangle.
In 1977, the Reconnaissance Division of the Soviet Navy organized a scientific research project to examine the issue of UFOs in the water. I was in charge of this group. At the end of 1977, we gave our large naval vessels instructions on how to observe UFOs.
August 18, 1980. According to reports from Moscow-based UFO experts Vladimir Azhaja, the Russian research vessel Vladimir Volbirov moved slowly south through the Dragon's Triangle, around Japan, heading toward Okinawa. Just after midnight, suddenly and without warning, a cylindrical metallic UFO-like object is seen to rise slowly from the sea, hover, then dart away into the sky. The object's ability to hover has caused experts like Azhaja to believe that the craft was not man-made. To this day, the event remains a mystery. 8 months after this Russian event, another significant incident occurs in almost the exact same location.
One of the more recent cases, and a fascinating case, is the Takikyoto Maru from 1981. They spotted a UFO, actually a USO, coming out of the water.
April 17, 1981. It is a clear day and the seas are calm. The 165-foot Japanese freighter Takikyoto Maru is sailing 200 miles off Kanazawa with over 30 crew members. Suddenly, the crew is rocked as shockwaves roll through their ship. The seamen immediately assume they've been hit.
April 17th of 1981, a Japanese ship sailing off the coast of Japan in an area that is noted as the Dragon's Triangle encountered a UFO that came out of the sea violently and caused huge waves to buffet the ship.
Captain Usuda is at the helm when a bright, saucer-shaped object rises out of the water. The USO is over 50 feet in diameter and hovers silently over the ship.
The ship's instruments, the compass, the various dials, the engines, all began to blur as the USO circled around the ship. The captain estimated that the USO circled the ship for about 15 minutes, then plunged back into the water.
The waves were so violent, Usuda reports, the ship nearly capsized. Even more fierce turbulence occurs when the USO returns to the water.
Here's the intriguing thing. When the instruments came back on, the captain compared the time on the radio to the time on the watches and found out the ship had lost 15 minutes in time.
Reports of UFOs observing and hovering close to large ships is not new to the Dragon's Triangle. According to Japanese ufologist Junichiro Narasawa, a Japanese government research vessel, Kaio Maru, is a ship with an impressive UFO-related history. Launched in 1967, she became the largest ship in the Ministry of Agriculture's fleet, weighing in at over 2,500 tons. The Kaio Maru was also considered to be one of the most advanced nautical research ships of her time. On 2 known occasions, in 1984 and 1986, the premier research ship was reportedly tracked by a UFO. These chilling events were witnessed by at least 9 research scientists aboard the ship, including researcher Mikio Noganobu.
In December 1984, Mr. Naganobu was in the Falkland Islands at the southern end of South America. One night, he saw 24 UFOs. They were like lights floating in the sky. Then they suddenly went in 3 different directions.
The second reported sighting by the Kaio Maru occurs 2 years later, in 1986, but this time in the Dragon's Triangle. A huge, cigar-shaped UFO, over 100 feet long, is reported to approach the ship at high speed before diving into the water.
According to Mr. Naganobu, he witnessed another event in 1986 in the Japan Sea. A huge, cigar-shaped UFO approached the ship. The only thing they saw was a small red light that kept disappearing. But this time, the UFO was seen on radar.
These 2 extraordinary events were reported in detail in the Japanese edition of Scientific American magazine in September 1988.
Scientific American magazine reported about these incidents. In the article, the editor actually described that this event is very important because it's an official report of the government research ship of the Ministry of Agriculture.
Reports of UFOs in the Dragon's Triangle are not limited to the sea. From the Amelia Earhart incident onward, pilots have found the skies above the triangle to be as treacherous as the oceans below. A significant air-to-air UFO event occurred over the western end of the triangle, a near-miss collision between an unidentified aircraft and a TOA Airlines Convair 240.
One famous incident happened in Ikeda, when a pilot witnessed a UFO and the control tower announced to all the aircraft that there was a UFO approaching.
March 18, 1965, 7:06 p.m. In a harried report to the air traffic control tower in Tomakatsu, 43-year-old Captain Yoshiharu Inaba reports an unidentified oblong craft is approaching his jetliner as it cruises over the triangle, fast. Inaba then makes a 60-degree turn at over 500 miles per hour to avoid collision. The object stops abruptly, then follows alongside the airliner. Captain Inaba reports he's being shadowed by a UFO. He reports the object is 50 feet in length and radiates a greenish light. Several witnesses observe the situation from the ground. Meanwhile, a Piper Apache registered to Tokyo Airlines hears Captain Inaba's frantic transmissions. At 10:07 Universal Time, he sees the same UFO at 7,200 feet, heading east to Osaka and toward the Dragon's Triangle. Air traffic controller Akira Taguchi was at his post when Captain Inaba radios his report. He later confirms the object was seen over the mountains near Hiroshima and near the island of Shikoku. The same day, at roughly the same time, engineers who worked in the mountains near Hiroshima said they had seen something which had been a flying saucer. These are the facts. Nobody knows what this object really was.
The Dragon's Triangle has been known for thousands of years. And one of the stories that's connected with it is that there's a dragon that lives under the ocean and comes out of the ocean and snatches craft and vessels down into the depths.
One of the world's earliest UFO stories, in fact, originates from the waters off Japan, along with what many believe to be the first modern drawings of UFOs. The legend of the Utsuro Bune, a mysterious alien woman who arrives from the bottom of the Pacific in a round, craft-like vessel, goes back centuries. A closer look at the drawings reveals a flying saucer-shaped object, similar to those seen by countless witnesses in the 20th century. These drawings are thought to be the earliest known UFO-themed prints.
In the writings, they found a description of a bowl-like metal ship that arrived on a beach called Hiratono Hama. The witnesses approached and looked inside. There was a woman with smooth, light clothes. On the ship, there were letters that had never been seen before. They described what could have been a UFO in ancient Japan. There were no round ships in Japan at that time, so they believed it was a UFO.
Most interesting part of the shapes of the Utsuro Bune. It is very similar to the modern UFOs. So my first interest is why the people can imagine this kind of shape 200 years ago.
Kazuo Tanaka, a professor at Gifu University in Tokyo, reopened the Utsuro Bune legend in 1997. His investigation led him to ask if the mysterious woman who came out of the waters of the Pacific so long ago was really part of, quote, a close encounter of the third kind.
I investigated the old ship in the Edo period, 200 years, intensively, but I could not find that any ships that is similar to these spherical shapes. This is similar to the Utsuro Bune. So it is very, very, I think, strange shape.
Beginning in the early 1800s, Japan suddenly sees a bounty of Utsuro Bune drawings, all by different artists in different parts of the country, each one telling the exact same story of a mysterious woman emerging from an eerily similar saucer-shaped craft.
The Utsuro Bune folklore is very famous in Japan, and had it done in many places in Japan. I could find 5 pictures. It is a little bit strange. So why people made so many drawings concerning the Utsurovne? It is a mystery.
These strange coincidences cause experts like Tanaka to wonder if Japan, which was completely closed to outsiders and outside news until 1857, experienced a mass UFO sighting at around this time.
The Utsurovne folklore in Japan has a key to solve the mystery of the modern UFOs, I think.
The mysteries of the sea pervade Japanese culture and history. Stories and legends surrounding UFO activity in the Dragon's Triangle have been around for centuries. On September 24th, 1235, strange celestial lights are seen to move and hover above General Yoritsumi's army encampment in Kyoto, which terrified the troops. The objects were thought to be dragons from the sea, on their way to attack them. 40 years later, 2 large-scale catastrophic events in the Dragon's Triangle would make world history and give its deep waters a deadly reputation.
The Devil's Triangle, which has accumulated a certain amount of lore in modern times, and this clearly, to some extent at least, reflects old Japanese traditions having to do with the sea, with dangers in the sea, with supernatural or even divine beings who live in the sea, who can both protect and also attack those who earn their livelihood from the sea, fishermen and so on.
In 1274, the Mongol Empire under Kublai Khan assembled a massive force of over 900 ships to conquer the one territory he coveted, Japan. Victory was more than assured until a single catastrophic event in the Triangle stopped this massive armada cold.
Mongolia was governing maybe half of Europe and all over Asia, and they tried to invade Japan as well. A typhoon came and all of the ships were sunk, and they couldn't reach Japan.
And they brought about 40,000 troops in 1274 to Japan. More than half of that fleet was sunk in this storm, and so the Mongols' first invasion ended up as a major disaster. You know, some 20,000 Mongols were killed in that instance or lost their lives.
Khan made another, more massive attack on Japan in 1281. This time, he brought 140,000 men and 3,000 ships. The second invasion had similar disastrous results. An estimated 70,000 Mongol troops were destroyed, along with the majority of the ships.
The second great effort to invade Japan was once again defeated by the arrival of a propitious wind, as the Japanese like to call it. And this created the notion of the divine wind.
At the time of the Mongolian invasion, it is believed that the wind saved Japan.
Experts and historians alike still question if events in this anomalous zone are the work of divine winds of benevolent gods, strange meteorological occurrences, or possibly something else.
The fact that nature intervened on 2 separate occasions, I don't know, it did put a little bit of folklore into Japanese history as far as heavenly intervention protecting Japan.
As Japan was all but closed to outsiders over much of its history, experts fear that a great reserve of UFO research into the Triangle is forever lost. It was not until the late 19th century that reports became more frequent. The American official whose work helped open Japan's doors to the West was personally involved in a mystery involving possible UFOs in the Dragon's Triangle. July 8th, 1853, 4 a.m. Commodore Matthew C. Perry is off the coast of Ulaga in Tokyo Bay. Suddenly, an unusual object emerges from the sky. Perry recorded this encounter in his log.
during the watch from midnight to 4 a.m., a very remarkable meteor was seen. It made its appearance in the south and west and illuminated the whole atmosphere. The spars, sails, and hulls of the ships in company, as well as our own, reflected its glare as distinctly as though a blue light were burning from each at the same time. From the south and west, about 15 degrees above the horizon, it pursued a northeasterly course in a direct line for a long distance, when it fell gradually toward the sea and disappeared.
What follows is a vivid description of something which does not resemble a meteor, something far more ominous.
Its shape was that of a large blue sphere with a red wedge-shaped tail, which, it could be easily observed, was formed of ignited particles and resembled the sparks of a rocket as they appear upon explosion.
UFO researchers in Japan are convinced that Commodore Perry, during one of the most important voyages west by an American, witnessed a UFO in the heart of the Dragon's Triangle.
There was a report of sightings of a UFO when the American leadership approached the Japanese government to open commerce. While his ship was floating at the Uraga, Perry wrote the report in his navigation diary. Others witnessed this sighting as well.
Perry continued to search for clues and answers, but died 5 years later in 1858, without further insight into the events of that night.
This is where two big dragons are hiding themselves from 3,000 years ago. This area is called the Devil's Sea, and many ships have disappeared without good reason. Let's find out the biggest and strongest mystery of the 20th century, the Dragon's Triangle.
What we have seen is that in Japan and in the Ring of Fire, that before and after increased seismic activity or increased volcanic activity, there'll be a lot of sightings of these UFOs.
Deep beneath the Dragon's Triangle lies one of the most seismically active regions on the planet. Here, gigantic undersea tectonic plates shift constantly, and suboceanic volcano eruptions are quite frequent, all of which might be responsible for significant shipping losses and dramatic loss of life.
Back in the States, we receive message traffic on a regular basis that tells us volcano warning alerts. So not only do we know where they are, we have them plotted on our charts. If I go down and check my email right now, I have about 8 or 10 messages from these guys telling us that there's a volcano here that has shown some sort of seismic activity, and your best bet is to steer clear.
When you get an underwater eruption, depending on how deep it is, if it's pretty deep, you'll just get lava flows coming out, but if it's closer to the surface, you'll get actual gas in the magma that forms bubbles, and it's an explosive eruption.
Dr. Joanne Stock is professor of geology and geophysics at Caltech University in Pasadena, California.
One of the Mariana Islands, which was erupting in 2003, it had these eruptions that were on the island itself, and people could see that there's pulses of gas coming out. It actually has more than 80 little vents that are offshore that are also active. If one of those was erupting, you know, you might see the peak of the volcano on the island. It doesn't look like anything's happening, but something could be erupting underwater where your ship is sailing near it and could be affected or could sink because too much gas is in the water.
The gases created by underwater volcanoes can wreak havoc with ships, even huge container and cargo ships.
If you happen to get a gas bubble, you know, a big gas bubble that came out of a vent that was underwater, if your ship was right on top of that gas bubble, you would sink because you wouldn't have enough buoyancy to keep your ship floating.
The Ring of Fire that lies within the Dragon's Triangle is filled with dangerous volcanoes at varied depths.
The shallowest ones are these islands above sea level, and then they go on down, 10,000 feet.
Why is there so much volcanic activity surrounding Japan and this area?
It may come as a surprise to some people to realize that the majority of the volcanism on the planet Earth is happening on the seafloor.
Most of the Pacific Ocean floor is moving from east to west, and as the seafloor is dragged down into the interior of the Earth, this water reacts with hot rock and makes volcanoes.
Volcanoes along the Marianas, which are erupting as a result of this plate collision, can toss aerosols and particulate matter all the way up to the stratosphere, and obviously if a plane flew into that, it might clog the engines.
Another dangerous phenomenon in the Dragon's Triangle is the so-called triangle waves. These bizarre oceanic enigma are swift and deadly, and impossible to predict.
There are big waves, 7, 8, 9 feet high, crashing in from different directions. This creates huge waves up to 65 feet high. This is the most dangerous thing that I have ever seen.
Japan is located where there are seasonal big winds. In the wintertime, there tends to be a lot of bad weather and turbulence. Winds from different directions create the triangle waves.
The term triangular wave, sankakunami in Japanese, is a name used by Japanese people from the past. What it represents from a scientific point of view is not known.
Dr. Hiroshi Tomita, special researcher at Japan's National Maritime Research Institute, and Dr. Takuji Waseda, professor at the University of Tokyo, performed a unique experiment for the History Channel in the world's largest wave tank. It demonstrates the destructive capabilities of the kinds of triangle waves and currents that affect this area.
A U.S. commercial ship reported that they actually saw a wave over 100 feet high, but it was measured by sight, so they don't have any scientific proof. What my team is trying to do is measure in a more scientific way.
There's 32 plungers at the end of the tank, which we control the amplitude of the phase from a computer. These tank tests are scalable. The same thing can happen in the real ocean.
Dr. Waseda illustrates the nature of a triangle wave.
As two waves process each other, the wave pattern will form a triangular shape. When a ship encounters these kind of triangular shaped wave, the ship can move in quite a different way. Sometimes it can move this way, but sometimes it can roll. Roll, for example, for a ship is extremely dangerous. The energy piles up. It is said that the amplitude can be quite high because of the crossing sea. Not being able to predict the direction of the forces is a threat for a ship.
The phenomenon of triangle waves is reportedly responsible for the destruction of many ships and great losses of life in the Dragon's Triangle.
I think the scientific knowledge is very similar to the jigsaw puzzle. We have no piece that matches to the UFOs.
There are many reports of accidents, so I consider that it is a dangerous area. But we cannot define those accidents either from a volcano, natural causes, or some mysterious UFO.
For hundreds of years in the Dragon's Triangle, there have been countless reports of disappearances and eerie encounters with UFOs, drawing a perfect correlation to its mysterious counterpart in Bermuda, leaving many researchers to call this hot zone the Pacific's Bermuda Triangle.
I've seen all the reports. I believe there are many people who see it and don't talk about it.
There are some people who say, I cannot believe until I see with my own eyes. But of course, the eyes are not always reliable. We have to research from many different points of view.
Maybe there are some doors that open frequently to the different dimensions on this planet. So, in theory, maybe it's possible there are doors like that in the ocean.
Modern researchers, both for the Dragon Sea off Japan and the Bermuda Triangle off the Florida coast, have hypothesized that there's an undersea UFO base or a USO base in those waters. They're very deep, there's a lot of volcanic activity, and sometimes the magnetic readings will throw off attempts to find objects on the bottom of the surface. So there may well be a USO base in the Dragon Sea off Japan.
Hey Chris, Swisher 127, he had a UFO or a rocket, something almost hit him in my airspace.
Military radar advises they are picking up an intermittent primary target behind you, in trail.
Since the earliest years of manned flight, pilots and astronauts from around the world have encountered UFOs high in our skies and beyond.
This is Houston. Say again, 7?
Now, many of their dramatic cockpit recordings, film clips, and stories have been made available for the first time.
The UFO stuff, it's that Roswell crap again.
UFO reports that we get from professional pilots are considered among the very best because of their knowledge of the sky.
From never-before-released black box and control tower recordings, from commercial airline flights.
5-2, Julie, you still see traffic out there?
Hell yeah. For the FAA, UFOs are real. They've been punishing pilots and covering up UFO reports for over 50 years.
To never-before-seen astronaut reports and secret recordings in outer space, as recently as 2005.
We have an unidentified flying object.
Many of NASA's top astronauts have already testified to seeing UFOs.
As astronauts and pilots around the world report an ever-increasing level of unusual activity in our skies.
Big bright light on the front and a greenish tail coming out the back.
I'll tell you what, that is weird. And the military doesn't admit to anything flying tonight.
It was too fast to be an airplane.
Looks like a UFO.
Many wonder, do the skies belong to us or to them?
The report that was made last November 17th of a UFO spotted over Alaska attracted special attention. This sighting was made by an airline pilot with 29 years of experience.
The crew claims that while it was flying over Alaska last November, it was followed for 400 miles by strange white, yellow, and amber lights.
Of the thousands of reported pilot and astronaut encounters with UFOs around the world, few are more harrowing than the encounter on November 17, 1986, by Japanese Airlines Flight 1628, high above the remote Alaskan tundra.
Regarding airline cases in America, the GL is very interesting because you have multiple witnesses.
It was a cargo aircraft, and the pilots observed an object that seemed to be tracking along with their aircraft.
It involved an investigation by the FAA. This is an official government investigation of the sighting itself.
The events of that night were captured on tape.
Spinner 1628 Heavy, military radar advises they are picking up an intermittent primary target behind you, in trail, I say again.
The Boeing 747 cargo jet is on a routine flight from Paris to Tokyo, cruising at 600 miles per hour at an altitude of 35,000 feet. It heads towards Anchorage, Alaska to refuel. Suddenly, at 5:11 p.m., Captain Kenju Terauchi, a pilot with 29 years flight experience, sees three large, fast-moving, unidentified objects 2,000 feet below them. The largest object is described by Captain Terauchi as resembling, quote, a shelled walnut. Captain Terauchi describes the main craft as being twice the size of an American aircraft carrier.
Co-pilot said it was as solid there as if you were seeing an oncoming jet with its lights on, except it wasn't an oncoming jet.
747 was nothing compared to this big flying saucer.
After several minutes of observing the UFO, the pilots realize the objects are now matching their speed, 600 miles per hour, tracking them. The captain reports that the objects begin, quote, making moves that are impossible for any man-made aircraft to perform. Then, without warning, two of the smaller craft suddenly rise and shoot directly in front of the pilot's window. The objects come so close to the airplane that Captain Terauchi says the intense glow makes his face feel warm.
All of a sudden they appear and they're traveling right in front of the aircraft. And they were sort of wobbling back and forth as they moved. They seemed to be only 1,000, maybe 2,000 feet in front of the aircraft and traveling at 600 and some miles an hour.
At that very moment, the radio link to Anchorage goes dead, leaving the aircraft flying blind. A horrifying catastrophe is seconds away, but the UFOs rise and veer left.
Just deviate from some object, request heading 240. Spinner 1628 Heavy, deviations approved as necessary for traffic. It's quite a big, like a formation.
Formation.
In his official FAA report, Captain Terauchi says, quote, "We had to get away from that object."
Spinner 1628, sir, do you still have the traffic?
Disappears, Spinner 1628.
Spinner 1628, I understand you do not see the traffic any longer?
Okay.
Moments later, an urgent message comes in from Elmendorf Air Force Base. The unidentified object now appears on their radar.
Yeah, that's 1-2 again. We have confirmed there is a flight size of 2 around your 1550 squawk. One primary return only.
Okay, where is he following him?
It looks like he is, yes.
Okay, stand by.
The phrase flight size of 2 indicates that JAL 1628 has uninvited guests with possible hostile intentions.
Spinner 1628 heavy. Military radar advises they are picking up an intermittent primary target behind you. In trail, I say again.
Immediately after this confirmation, the FAA requests that the Air Force scramble jets.
Do you have anybody to scramble up there, or do you want to do that?
Oh, we're going to talk to your liaison officer about that.
It's starting to concern Japan Airlines. I think it's 360 now. It's still falling.
Okay, we'll call the military desk on this.
Although the military desk took no action, JAL 1628 was able to land safely in Anchorage at 6:20 p.m. Extensive media coverage from around the world helped make this incident one of the most widely reported UFO cases in history. While the JAL case continues to inspire debate about the nature and intent of the objects that tracked the 747, to this day, the case remains a mystery.
The Japan Airlines 747 had a saucer go around it. The papers mysteriously disappeared from the FAA office.
January 30, 1987, only 2 months after the JAL report, a similar UFO event takes place in these same Alaskan skies, but this one involves the U.S. military. A U.S. Air Force KC-135 inbound from Elmendorf Air Base in Anchorage to Eielson Air Force Base southeast of Fairbanks reports a chilling UFO-related incident at 20,000 feet.
Showing traffic for us around 1 o'clock. Can't really tell the distance. Seems to be about full altitude. Actor 29, negative. I have no traffic near 1 o'clock.
The pilot reports that the object is strikingly similar to the UFO reported by the JAL flight, a massive, disc-shaped, noiseless object larger than an aircraft carrier. Seconds later, Anchorage Air Traffic Control asks if the KC-135 still has the object in sight. The pilot replies yes, and says the object is now 40 feet from his aircraft. The recent incident involving JAL Flight 1628 even comes up in their cockpit recording.
We're from California, just visiting up here. People see this sort of thing a lot other than the Japan Airline type? Actor 29, it's very rare seeing the lights up there.
30 minutes later, the Anchorage control tower passes along a message from the regional FAA office.
Actor 29, the quality assurance staff at the Anchorage Center here requests you give them a call after you land at Eielson.
That is concerning the object we're looking at?
Affirmative, sir.
I think pilots make especially good UFO witnesses. They know what's normal in the sky and what isn't. They've seen all different kinds of airplanes routinely. When a pilot reports a UFO, there's a better than average chance that that's what it was.
January 31st, 1987, less than 24 hours after the KC-135 encounter, yet another UFO-related incident occurs in the skies above Alaska. The pilots aboard Alaska Airlines Flight 53 reportedly witness enormous, bright, disc-like objects tracking their airplane. Ground control reports that no object is visible on radar, but it is the speed of the UFO craft that alarms the pilots.
Ahead, just underneath our radar, picked up a blip. He's moving about a mile a second. He's full out straight ahead of us, just disappeared. Man, he was there and then he was gone.
If you're a pilot and you report a UFO sighting to the FAA, you might as well turn in your license the next day. The FAA, the military, even civilian authorities don't want to know about UFOs.
Pilot encounters with UFOs first surfaced in the 1920s and 30s, long before black box and control tower tape recordings were possible.
Sightings by pilots have occurred ever since the very beginning with Kenneth Arnold.
Kenneth Arnold was flying from Chehalis, Washington, over towards Idaho. Somewhere around Mount Rainier, he identified what looked to him to be about 9 aircraft traveling in an east to west position.
It was this man, Kenneth Arnold, from Boise in Idaho, who ushered in the era of the flying saucer.
At this point is where I had this terrific flash. I looked way off here to the north, and that's when I saw where the flash came from. It was an echelon formation of a very peculiar-looking aircraft. The second craft from the rear had a more or less crescent shape, and of course I kept mulling in my mind, that's the damnedest looking airplane I ever saw.
Upon landing in Yakima, Washington on June 24, 1947, Arnold makes what would become the very first civilian reports of UFOs to the government. He would describe the objects to reporters as appearing and moving like, quote, saucers skipping across the water.
Somebody else twisted that around into the term flying saucer. That was the beginning of it.
His official report made to the Joint Army and Air Forces intelligence is seen here for the first time on television. Arnold describes the UFOs as thin, round in the front, and coming to a point in the back, and did not appear to whirl or spin. He watches as the craft flip and flash in the sun, and comments, "The more I observe these objects, the more upset I became, as I am accustomed and familiar with most all objects flying."
The Arnold case was extremely significant in that prior to it, there had been no talk publicly about disc-shaped, shiny objects flying around. And we haven't been without UFOs or flying saucers ever since.
The Grand Canyon is a graveyard for 128 passengers and crew of 2 airliners which collided in a thunderstorm and crashed on peaks little more than a mile apart. The impact reduced the wreckage to carbonized smears of paint and metal. None survived. It was the worst commercial air disaster in history.
While some experimental black box and pilot voice recorders were in use by the military during World War II, it was not until a catastrophic mid-air collision in 1956, about 200 miles due east of Area 51, that onboard recording boxes were mandated by the FAA.
A major accident above Grand Canyon imposed the FAA and the NTSB to ask for all the airlines to be equipped with audio recording system.
Since the mandate of cockpit voice recorders, hundreds of reports have been made of strange lights, near-miss collisions, and radar tracking of unidentified flying objects. 3 recent pilot recordings captured over New England have been obtained for this broadcast. They are presented here for the first time.
One of the most fascinating cases is Lufthansa 405 out of JFK November 18th, 1995, where they saw a UFO across Long Island.
November 18th, 1995, while on a routine flight above Long Island, New York, Lufthansa Flight 405, an Airbus A340 out of New York en route to Frankfurt, Germany, makes a disturbing call to Boston Air Traffic Control. The pilots reported unidentified flying object passing within 3,000 feet of their plane.
It should be on our tail about 10 minutes. We passed it just 1 minute ago and it was looking strange.
The UFO is described as a long cylindrical object with a white light on the front and a long green comet tail. The strange UFO is also seen by British Airways Flight 226, a 747 flying from London, and is just north of the object. The code name for British Airways flights is Speedbird.
I actually looked about opposite traffic 2,000 feet above. It did have a very strong vapor trail which looked more like smoke, and the light on the front was very, very bright. Lufthansa 405, how far off your side did that traffic pass? It was pretty close, and like the Speedbird said, it looked like 2,000 or 3,000 feet above on the left wing, just 1 mile, looked like a UFO.
Boston Air Traffic Control contacts Giant Killer, the military fleet area control and surveillance facility that monitors restricted airspace over the Northeast.
Giant Killer, they got anything flying out in the area? Negative 105 turned over. Well, then I just had couple of UFO reports. Oh, is that right? I had a couple of guys that reported lights just going over their head. I had no traffic whatsoever in the area. They said it passed within a mile of them, like at 2,000 feet above them, opposite direction. Oh, it could have been a meteor or something. No, we don't have any aircraft out there.
Both pilots confirm the object has glowing lights. The object has a green vapor trail, not like any vapor trail they've ever seen.
Both pilots immediately questioned the idea that the UFO they saw was a meteor.
Sometimes a 405, so you would say that it definitely wasn't a meteorite? I don't know. Just do a 226 now. It couldn't have been a meteorite because it was flying level. It looked as if it was going very quickly. It definitely looked faster than normal aircraft. It was cruising in a straight line at one level flight. Number 226, thank you. We're looking into it. I mean, we're making a report. We really don't know what it was. And the military doesn't admit to anything flying tonight.
While the authenticity of this recording is not in question, the FAA and both airlines have never commented on this mysterious incident over New England. 2 years later, Boston would be the epicenter of yet another strange encounter between pilots and UFOs. But this time, the encounter would result in a near-miss collision. The incident was captured on tape by the aircraft's black box recorder. August 9, 1997. Swiss Air Flight 127 is a jumbo jet en route to Zurich, Switzerland. Pilot Philipp Bobe and First Officer Kurt Grunder are at the controls. At 23,000 feet, Bobe will later report that his visibility was excellent with no haze and a clear blue sky until an unidentified craft enters the plane's airspace. The pilot immediately contacts Boston Air Traffic Control.
Sister 127, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I don't know what it was, but it just overflew like a couple of hundred feet above us. I don't know if it was a rocket or whatever, but incredibly fast, opposite direction. It was too fast to be an airplane.
Later in his official report, Bobe will describe the UFO as a bright white cylindrical object with no wings, similar to a white shark. Aviation writer Don Berliner filed a Freedom of Information Act request to obtain the FAA audio and written records of this incident.
The Swiss Air case is significant because the object that was described is quite unusual, and the people reporting it have excellent credentials. These are veteran airline pilots.
Moments later, the Boston control tower contacts another sector operator who is about to take over the flight.
Hey, Chris, Swiss Air 127, he had a UFO or a rocket, something almost hit him in my airspace.
UFO or a rocket almost hit the Swiss Air 127?
Went right above him, about 200 or 300 feet.
The pilot's official incident report classifies the object as a UFO, categorizing its shape, color, and speed. However, the NTSB and FAA concluded the object seen by Swiss Air 127 was a weather balloon launched by the military at about the same time.
These are not the kind of people who would be fooled by weather balloons, because these are fairly common experiences among airline pilots. It's really hard to mistake a weather balloon for much of anything else.
These eerie sightings of UFOs are not isolated to the Northeast. In fact, sightings of UFOs by pilots have been reported across the country. On February 28, 1996, the skies over the Midwest are rocked by simultaneous reports of frightening airplane-like objects moving at incredible speeds. This case involves two commercial aircraft, Air Shuttle 5959 en route to Cleveland and Mesaba 3179, a Dash 8, heading from Detroit to Pellston, Michigan. This event was recorded by the Cleveland Tower.
Cleveland Tower gets a report from an air shuttle flight coming out of Detroit that they've picked up a strange light very close to them. Nobody can figure out what the light is.
Hey, Cleveland, SL5959, we see traffic out there 12 to 1 o'clock, lower altitude. Do you have one radar? Air Shuttle 5959, that's a negative, sir. I don't have anything out in front of you. Can you get an estimate on an altitude on him? We're in between layers here. I'm just going to estimate 2,000 feet below us, maybe, and sort of pulsating right about, I don't know, 10 miles out. Northwest of Detroit, did you see that light? Yeah. That's what I saw, a real bright white light, sometimes flickering underneath the cloud.
Two reports from two separate aircraft, and both pilots describe the same bright pulsating lights between the cloud layers. Cleveland Air Traffic Control questions if the light might be a landing beacon.
Air Shuttle 5959, is that traffic that you saw earlier? Do you see him out there any longer?
That is Shuttle 5959. That's permanent. I don't know if we're getting closer to it or what, but it looks like a rotating light around it, like a frisbee type thing that's going around it. UFO.
Wasaba 3179, do you see the same thing?
Sir, I saw it coming out of Detroit. I wondered, all I saw was just a couple real bright flashes of light, but it looked like it was underneath the cloud deck to me, maybe 10,000 feet.
Would you think it might be like a reflection, maybe perhaps off a beacon that for some reason it's just one of those weird things, natural phenomena that you're getting a reflection? Because I got nothing out there.
There's definitely a distinct whitish, well, they're looking a little red and greenish light sort of pulsating, and it is constant. It's not a beacon.
The Cleveland Air Shuttle hangs a UE, goes under the light, and now is looking at the light from underneath and says, absolutely not, Cleveland. We're seeing the light above us, probably at 5,000 feet.
And Cleveland Air Shuttle 5959. Just to keep you advised, we're descending to 4,000 feet right now, and as we descended through 10,000 feet, that object is above us right now. It is not on the ground. It's about 10,000 feet. I'll tell you what, that is weird. It's just sitting there pulsating.
I'm trying to do a little investigating as to what this might be, and if you would keep me advised on this.
Okay, sir. I'm going to blink my lights at him and see if I can get any reaction on him.
Masaba 3179, when you flashed your lights, did you get any response?
Didn't appear to, sir.
Okay.
A double pilot sighting caught on radio that you would never hear because the media never covered it.
On May 25, 1995, an exceptional UFO-related event occurs more than 7 miles above Earth. An enormous, fast-moving UFO was witnessed by an America West Airlines crew. What makes this incident a watershed in black box recordings is that it is one of the first on record to reportedly involve a government agency, NORAD, the government's watcher of the North American skies.
This 1995 America West Airlines case, the government got involved briefly. Somebody with air traffic control told the crew, one of the crew members, that they had been in touch with NORAD, which had briefly confirmed radar tracking of something in the area and then later denied it.
The Air Force confirmed that there was an object, and especially the NORAD, the North American Air Defense Command, yeah, we detect something.
America West Flight 564 is flying from Tampa, Florida to Las Vegas, Nevada. Captain Eugene Tollefson and First Officer John Waller are in control, cruising at 39,000 feet above Bovina, Texas. All is normal until 10:25 p.m., when the pilots see a UFO just below them at 30,000 feet. The actual recordings between Flight 564, Albuquerque Air Traffic Control, and NORAD were recently obtained by the History Channel.
Okay, Cactus 564, say again. There's nothing on the radars on the other centers at all on that particular area, that object that's up in the air?
It's up in the air?
Affirmative.
What's the altitude about?
I don't know, probably right around 30,000 or so, and it's with a thrill that starts from going counterclockwise, and the length is unbelievable.
The pulsating object is reportedly over 400 feet long, yet invisible on radar. This prompts air traffic control to contact nearby Cannon Air Force Base radar operations in Clovis, New Mexico.
Cannon, go ahead.
Hey, guy at 39,000 says he sees something at 30,000 that the length is unbelievable and it has a strobe on it.
Uh-huh.
This is not good.
What does that mean?
I don't know. It's a UFO or something. It's that Roswell crap again.
The crew that saw it described it as a long, thin object, cylindrical, with a series of lights down the side, blinking on and off in sequence.
They saw a cigar-shaped object flying with strobing lights on a length of roughly 300 feet, which is quite big.
Seconds later, An Air Force F-117A Nighthawk from the 49th Fighter Wing at Holloman Air Force Base is alerted by air traffic control. The stealth fighter sees something.
Arcade 5, in the next 2 to 3 minutes, be looking off to your right side. If you see anything about 30,000 feet, one aircraft reported something. It wasn't a weather balloon or anything. It was a long, white-looking thing with a strobe on it. Let me know if you see anything out there.
Any traffic off our left wing right now?
I've got some passing off here 9 o'clock and about 12 at 31 westbound.
That's it. Looks like something about a little lower than us just went off our left wing.
The Nighthawk reports an object passing off its left wing. America West 564 has the same experience moments later. The object moves dangerously close to both aircraft. The anxious America West crew contacts Albuquerque Air Traffic Control again. The object suddenly disappears from Flight 564's view. Then a concerned Albuquerque Air Traffic Control contacts NORAD's Western Air Defense Sector headquarters at McCord Air Force Base in Tacoma, Washington.
I've got something unusual, and I was wondering if you all happen to know of anything going on out here. I had a couple of aircraft reported something 300 to 400 foot long, cylindrical in shape with a strobe.
Oh.
At 30,000 feet.
We don't have anything going on over that I know of.
This guy definitely saw it run all the way down the side of the airplane. It's right out of the X-Files. I mean, it's a definite UFO or something like that.
Y'all are serious about this.
Yeah, he's real serious about it too. And he looked at it, saw it.
Holy.
13 minutes later, Albuquerque Air Traffic Control checks in again with NORAD. Only this time, NORAD has something.
We had someone call here earlier about a pilot spotting an unidentified flying object.
Yep, that's us.
Okay, well, hey, we're tracking a search-only track kind of up where that might have happened. We've been tracking it for about 3-4 minutes now.
According to the official report, NORAD has denied this incident in writing.
These were experienced airline pilots. They'd been flying thousands of hours. They were familiar with the sky. When they say something, you have to pay more attention to it.
A Melbourne, Australia television reporter said his crew filmed UFOs for 7 minutes Saturday night over the eastern region of New Zealand's South Island.
On December 21st, 1978, New Zealand cargo plane pilots John Randell and Keith Hine observed strange light phenomenon over the sea near the South Island of New Zealand. The objects are picked up as well by Wellington, New Zealand Air Traffic Control radar, and reports reach local media. 10 days later, on December 31st, producers at Australia's Channel 10 dispatch reporter Quentin Fogarty with a camera crew to attempt to find these same UFOs along the exact same flight path. And they do.
Air traffic controllers were recording strange blips on their radar. Here is what reporter Quentin Fogarty said as he traced an airline flight that reported seeing UFOs last month.
We're now in the radar room at Christchurch Airport. It's about 1:45, and in about another 20 minutes we intend to take off again in the Argosy and retrace the route we took only a few moments earlier. We've just heard from Wellington radar that there are still targets in the Kaikoura area. So this time we're hoping to get better film than we did last time, and all I can say is we'll see what happens.
The New Zealand case is of considerable importance in the history of ufology because of the residue of information that's available afterwards. We have the film itself and the tape recordings made by Quentin Fogarty on the aircraft, and of prime importance is we have the tape recording made by the Wellington Air Traffic Control Center, and it provides a history of the sighting minute by minute.
We're about now 3 minutes out of Christchurch Airport, and on our starboard side we can see two very bright lights, one much brighter than the other. It is like a very, very bright star, and just below it is another light, not quite so bright.
Just before midnight, Fogarty goes airborne with New Zealand cargo pilot Bill Startup. The beginning of the flight is uneventful. Then at 12:05 a.m., Fogarty and the crew see strange lights and objects coming toward them from the right side of the plane. Fogarty turns on his camera and begins filming.
Those two lights appear to be traveling with us. They're still off the starboard wing. The brighter light is still above the other, and it's moved a little further ahead of the other. It's extremely bright, much brighter than any of the other stars in the sky.
Ground radar observes these objects, and the control tower confirms the sighting and records the conversation. What follows is the actual audio of this unusually well-documented event.
The storm target showing at 11 o'clock at 3 miles. Just left at 9 o'clock at 2 miles.
Captain Startup recounts that the object, or target, is initially ahead of him, then travels at an unbelievable speed past his left side. He quickly banks the plane left in an attempt to make visual contact. On the ground, Wellington Air Traffic Control radios a chilling message to the captain. They've picked up yet another target on his left side, and this one is closing in on the plane.
Target is 12 o'clock at 3 miles.
I'm now looking over towards the right of the aircraft, and we have an object confirmed by Wellington radar. It's been following us for quite a while. It's about 4 miles away, and it looks like a very faint star, but then it emits a very bright white and green light.
Captain Startup is able to get close enough to determine that the object is an array of bright blue lights pulsing at a rapid rate. To his shock, the object has gotten bigger.
There was an interesting radar event where the some object got so close to the aircraft it looked to Wellington radar as if the aircraft radar target image had doubled in size.
Strong target, right in formation with you now. Your target has doubled in size.
The double-sized target continues to appear on radar screens for 36 seconds, then returns back to normal size.
Yeah, blue light's right there. This is the object which was apparently traveling along with the aircraft. It was picked up on aircraft radar.
Dr. Bruce Maccabee received a 16mm copy of the Argosy UFO film directly from the Australian TV network in 1979.
Roll 4, take 10.
This complete and unedited film has never been made available before. Experts believe that these images are the most comprehensive and frightening UFO evidence ever captured on film.
This is the famous New Zealand film obtained the night of December 31st, 1978. The cameraman is sitting in the seat between the pilot and the co-pilot. The image is dancing around because he was carrying it on his shoulder. They saw this light to their right. And this light, as time goes on, will fade in and out, takes on various shapes. This is the flashing light that you have to slow down and look at frame by frame to see what happens. When it goes from very bright white down to dim orange, you can see the image went over to the side, then he turned the camera a little bit in order to pull it back into the center.
That other target that has been following us has now been joined by 2 others. So we now, at this stage, have 3 unidentified flying objects just off our right wing. And they've been following us, or one of them's been following us now for probably about 10 minutes. I, for one, am hoping really that we've seen enough tonight, and the rest of our journey back to Berlin will be uneventful. I think I've just about had enough of UFOs for one night.
And that's the way it is. Or is it? Monday, January 1st, 1979. This is Walter Cronkite, CBS News. Good night.
Pilot sightings of UFOs are not exclusive to Earth's atmosphere. In the early 1960s, as America and the Soviet Union escalate the space race, astronauts and cosmonauts begin to witness strange and unexplained objects and events in outer space.
You know, in 1958, when NASA formed, they literally expected to make contact with extraterrestrial life.
December 4th, 1965. 4 hours and 24 minutes into the historic 14-day mission. The astronauts of Gemini 7, Frank Borman and James Lovell, both military test pilots, are performing routine tasks. Then suddenly at 22:34 Universal Time, as the capsule is high above Hawaii, both men see a bright object or bogey flying above their capsule. Borman Radio's mission control in Houston. What follows are the actual radio transmissions.
797 here, Houston 98.
Loud and clear. 7, go ahead.
Have bogey at 10 o'clock high.
This is Houston. Say again, 7.
So we have a bogey at 10 o'clock high.
The recording suddenly ends. NASA insists the sighting is Gemini's Titan booster rocket. Lovell replies that he can see the booster as well as, quote, several actual sightings.
I remember hearing this on my car radio, talked to NASA, and they confirmed that that was the phrase used, we have a bogey in sight.
In NASA's official Gemini 7 mission report, published in January 1966, no mention is ever made of the infamous bogey recording. Neither Lovell nor Borman have ever commented publicly on this message.
But as far as the American public is concerned, NASA denies the very existence of UFOs they've been covering up since the dawn of spaceflight.
From the early years of the space program, NASA was beset with sighting reports from astronauts. September 13, 1966. Gemini 11 astronauts Richard Gordon and Charles Pete Conrad see something strange on their 16th revolution of Earth, 27 hours and 47 minutes after takeoff. Conrad radios ground control. He reports he has just seen an unidentified object about 50 miles downrange. It is metallic and revolving at more than 1 revolution per second. He then pulls out a camera and snaps 3 photographs. It drops down in front of them before quickly disappearing. Seen here are the actual photographs taken by Conrad aboard Gemini 11.
And NORAD said that the only thing that they could imagine it was a booster from a Russian satellite. The NASA people threw out the NORAD explanation almost immediately. The Gemini 11 case is the only one that NASA considers to be unidentified.
Gemini 11, however, was not the last NASA mission to have alleged encounters with UFOs. In fact, more and more UFO sightings were reported as Gemini opened the door to the Apollo program.
The Apollo astronauts in particular were trailed by UFOs.
It is alleged that Neil Armstrong, saw UFOs, that many of the astronauts did, but they won't talk about it publicly yet, but they might.
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
The famous Apollo 11 mission reportedly experienced objects tracking the capsule, as well as objects that were photographed by the astronauts on the lunar surface. 4 months later, on November 14, 1969, Apollo 12 commander Pete Conrad reports back to NASA that he sees an unidentified object out his window.
An object which is at the same place all the time but appears to be tumbling. Well, we've had it ever since yesterday. It just seems to be tagging along with us.
While the object is widely considered to be debris falling from the booster, many researchers remain skeptical. They suggest such an object would be incapable of tracking a fast-moving space capsule for an extended period of time. As the Apollo missions open the door to the Space Shuttle program, experts are convinced the door was also open to an increased level of UFO activity in outer space. In 1981, NASA initiates the Space Shuttle program, and with it, an unprecedented wave of UFO sightings, including astounding audio and video evidence. One highly controversial recording emerges from STS-29, a Space Shuttle Discovery flight on March 13, 1989. Astronaut John Blaha reports the sighting of something unusual.
One of the NASA transmissions that wasn't successfully sanitized, back in 1989, one of the astronauts on a space shuttle said, "We're still looking at the aliens." It was as plain as day.
The following recording was reportedly intercepted by a ham radio operator in Maryland. To this day, NASA has neither confirmed nor denied the validity of this transmission.
The space shuttle has 2 radio channels. One is a public channel that we all hear when NASA is broadcasting. We can hear what the astronauts are saying. The other channel is a Department of Defense encrypted channel, and that's where I believe the real conversations are going on.
The new millennium ushered in more UFO sightings by NASA shuttle crews. One extraordinary recording occurred aboard Space Shuttle Flight STS-73. Mission specialist Catherine Coleman sees something curious on day 3 of the routine 15-day mission.
This is October 21st, 1995.
We have an unidentified flying object.
And nothing after. I mean, there she is. Catherine's just floating around in there. And that's where I believe they went on to the Department of Defense encrypted channel on the space shuttle, and they continued the conversation.
Researcher David Sereda has been studying unusual phenomenon in outer space for over a decade. It is his theory that NASA continued recording, but on a secret frequency, leaving us with more questions than answers.
We have an unidentified flying object.
Even recent shuttle missions have had eerie reports and sightings of strange objects. According to Sereda, some of the most shocking evidence of UFOs in outer space comes as recently as August 6, 2005, from Space Shuttle Flight STS-114.
Well, the space shuttle is doing 18,000 miles an hour around the Earth. So the object is traveling obviously much faster than 18,000 miles an hour to catch up to the shuttle, to fly in tandem speed with it, and then it takes off and goes back out the other way. And this is real footage from the space shuttle. Even considering that it may be just a few miles away from the space shuttle is obviously a very large UFO.
The object enters quickly, dramatically changes speed and direction, then flies back out of frame. The trajectory and speed of the object defy all laws of physics, leaving researchers like Sereda to draw their own conclusions.
When you zoom in on video frames or any digital media, you get pixelation. So some of the rectangular shapes you see are pixels, but notice also you can see the round aura of light around it, so you can still differentiate shapes within the pixels. There's no way that's dust and debris. There's no way it's another satellite. When you go through process of elimination, you know that what we're seeing in STS-114 is truly a UFO. There's really nothing else out there like that.
Since NASA does not comment on the topic of UFOs, the authenticity of space recordings and sightings cannot be officially confirmed, which leaves many questions unanswered.
UFOs constantly trailed our spaceships around planet Earth, the space shuttle, but more importantly, all the Apollo, the Project Apollo spacecraft on the way to the moon.
I think a lot of astronauts are going to start coming forward and testifying to what they have seen.
My impression is that the guys who go running around saying the NASA stuff proves something are hyping it.
As Earth's airspace grows more and more crowded each day and more people than ever take to the skies, is it possible that reports like the ones you've just seen will continue?
There are reams and reams of official reports by commercial aircraft, by private aircraft, and military aircraft about pilot encounters. Even if, while we're sitting right here in California, a UFO turned up over Santa Monica Bay, you probably hear a great explanation of how it was a reflection of the sun behind the cloud.
So many reports from so many experienced pilots of strange phenomenon and frightening encounters with UFOs since the beginning of manned flight. As our pilots fly through Earth's atmosphere and further into space, many continue to wonder, do the skies truly belong to us or to them?
3179, we got a passenger taking a picture of it right now. Right. Looks like a UFO.